Welcome into CBS News 24/7. I'm Juliette Goodrich. Here's a look at the four big headlines we're following at 4. President Trump on Capitol Hill to push what he calls his one big beautiful bill. But what was his visit enough to convince GOP holdouts?
Anybody that didn't support it as a Republican, I would consider to be a fool. It's a great bill.
A maintenance worker arrested in the jailbreak in New Orleans. How investigators say he played a role in helping several inmates escape. Plus, one family's tragedy on vacation. They're warning to others on a hidden danger.
After dinner, they went back to the room and never came back out of the room.
And later, a California fire deputy chief runs inside a fertility clinic just minutes after a bomb goes off. How he unknowingly saved the embryos of one of his colleagues.
You know, there were hopes and dreams in there, and the fire department volunteered to go try and help.
Right off the top, a live look at the White House, where any moment now, President Donald Trump and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth are expected to make an announcement from the Oval Office. Trump was on Capitol Hill earlier today, urging GOP holdouts to back his so-called big beautiful bill. So what's in the bill that has lawmakers so divided? It includes continuing the 2017 tax cuts and eliminating taxes on tips and overtime pay. It also raises spending for defense and immigration while asking for cuts to Medicaid, food stamps, and clean energy subsidies. So let's bring in CBS News congressional correspondent Torian Small live from Capitol Hill with more about the budget and these key issues holding this up.
Yeah, Jules, so what we saw happen coming out of this meeting between Donald Trump and these Republican lawmakers is that although Donald Trump had a pretty rosy outlook on where this bill will go, there were still some holdouts in the ranks. We saw Representative Andy Harris come out of it saying that it's clear that the president isn't speaking for the rest of the Republican Party when he says that this bill is tenable. And then we also just heard from Representative Andy Ogles of Tennessee, and he said if the bill were before him today for a full floor vote, it would die a painful death. Now, some of the things that are holding up Republicans, like those fiscal conservative hawks like Representative Chip Roy of Texas, is the fact that they don't believe yet this bill has enough spending cuts to justify the $4.8 trillion price tag that comes with expanding Donald Trump's 2017 tax cuts. There is also this sect of Republicans who are concerned about the $30,000 cap on federal deductions for state and local taxes not being enough. They would like to see more movement on that before they could lend their support behind this bill. So there's fracturing within the Republican Party that could prove fatal to the pathway for passage for this bill.
What are you hearing from lawmakers? Did Trump do enough to convince the holdouts?
Well, it's not clear yet. I mean, we heard from some Republicans like Lauren Boebert of Colorado, who said that she saw intense admiration for the president, says that she believes quite a few people will be backing him. But again, we heard from Ogles, we heard from Harris, who said that they aren't on the same page with the president and just can't stand behind this bill as it stands. There's still some time. There's a little bit of wiggle room here because we know that the Rules Committee will take up this bill for a vote at 1 a.m. on Wednesday. Then it'll go to the floor for a vote, presumably by Thursday, so this can pass the threshold before that Memorial Day holiday weekend that the speaker has talked about. So we'll see whether or not the president was able to drum up support, but we know that.
Yeah, we know that Trump's cabinet members testified in some pretty fiery budget hearings on Capitol Hill today, including Secretary of State Marco Rubio. So what stands out to you from his hearing?
Well, it got intense at several points throughout his hearing. He's obviously there to advocate for a budget. The biggest thing on the Hill, obviously, is this reconciliation bill. But concurrently, Congress has to pass an appropriations bill before the government shuts down in September, because they kicked the can down the road last September. So this is why we're staring this down right now. What we know is that Rubio was a staunch defender of the president's agenda so far and his mass deportation plan. He's also someone who received unanimous support from senators in his confirmation hearings. That's why we're seeing Democrats come out now to really suggest that they have remorse about supporting him at first. This is an interesting exchange between him and Senator Van Hollen of Maryland. Take a listen.
Well, I can go on. I mean, there's other things here. We spent $227,000 for Big Cat's YouTube channel from USAID. We spent $14 million for social cohesion in Mali, whatever the hell that means. So I can go on and on. I got the list here, and there's more. I didn't even bring the whole list. In the case of El Salvador, absolutely. Absolutely. We deported gang members, including the one you had a margarita with. And that guy is a human trafficker, and that guy is a gangbanger, and the evidence is going to be clear in the days to come. You're going to see who you went to defend.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Secretary Rubio has the floor.
Mr. Chairman, he can't make unsubstantiated comments like that.
Secretary Rubio has the floor. You had
Secretary
your time.
Rubio should take that testimony to the federal court of the United States, because he hasn't done it under oath.
That tiff came after Van Hollen went on this long rant about his former support for Rubio, saying that he's disappointed him and that he's pretty much parroted Donald Trump's actions to an extent which he said is not within the power of the Secretary of State, saying that Donald Trump has done quite a bit that has caused concerns not just for Democrats, but also quite a bit of legal pushback from courts, which is why we heard Rubio there say that it is not the judicial branch that could determine foreign policy under the executive branch, and ultimately that fight that we saw explode there, Jules.
Yeah, Torian Small, thank you so much. So let's bring in CBS News White House reporter Olivia Rinaldi with more on Trump's message to GOP lawmakers on Capitol Hill. What did he have to say?
Well, Jules, it's good to be with you. We know the president went up there this morning to really rally House Republicans around his big, beautiful bill. That's the mega bill that holds all of his his second administration, priorities, legislative priorities, things that he would like to see accomplished. Of course, we saw it fail in committee last week. So now the White House and Trump are rallying behind the bill. He went up there today and he told the reporters that were up there who asked him whether or not he would be lobbying, and to get more Republicans to support it. He said they're a fool if they don't support this bill. He also went on to say that there were we heard from a senior White House official that there were three things that the president communicated to House Republicans today in a very direct and clear way. One, that he doesn't want SALT taxes to impede this bill. Those are those state and local taxes that the some House Republicans would like to see raised so they can deduct it from their federal taxes. Trump says, forget that, we'll do it later, just pass the bill as is. He also said that they should not touch Medicaid except for certain circumstances like eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse. And the president also addressed them and said that they should stick together and get the bill done for the American people. But Jules, this White House official also told us that the president made it very clear he is losing his patience with these House Republicans, particularly those Republicans on the SALT tax committee and the House Freedom Caucus committee. Those are the ones that don't want to see any more money being added to the debt, which some people say this bill would do. And so it's a very fragile situation right now about the president's legislative priorities on Capitol Hill and whether or not he can get it passed. And just mind you, the deadline for this that Trump said he wanted to see this signed by is July 4th. That means these House Republicans need to work expeditiously in the next couple of days to stay on that timeline. We'll have to see whether or not they do.
All right, Olivia Rinaldi. Thank you, Olivia. A Democratic Congresswoman facing assault charges after an incident at an immigration center. Next. You're watching CBS News 24/7. Congresswoman LaMonica McIver is facing assault charges after an incident with federal officers outside an immigration detention center in Newark, New Jersey. This morning, McIver spoke briefly with the press about the charges.
I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been supportive, both Democrats and all of the folks, around this nation who understand and know what this administration, has been doing, to judges, to political leaders. lacking people of undue process. And so at the end of the day, we just really look forward to the day in court.
CBS News Department of Justice reporter Scott McFarland joining us live now. So, Scott, what do we know about the case against MacIver?
It's a pretty unprecedented case. These are two federal criminal charges against a sitting member of Congress. These are two charges of assaulting, impeding, interfering with federal law enforcement. What the Department of Justice is alleging here is Congresswoman MacIver made physical contact with her forearms against two different federal agents, one with Homeland Security, one with Immigration and Customs Enforcement, during that May 9th, 2025 confrontation outside the Delaney Detention Immigration Center in Newark. The Congresswoman says this is a political prosecution, that it was the federal agents who created the unsafe, unacceptable condition outside that detention center, and she looks forward to her day in court. As for when her day in court will be, that's not determined yet. No arraignment date, no pretrial hearing, no preliminary hearing has been set as of yet. Just an 8-page charging document in the federal court in Newark against a first-term Democratic Congresswoman from New Jersey.
So let's backtrack to the January 6th rioters. They've faced similar charges. The Trump administration just reached a settlement with the family of Ashley Babbitt. So how is that timing impacting MacIver's case?
It really is quite a contrast, isn't it? On the same day as a charging document is filed against a member of Congress for assaulting police, you have an accused Capitol rioter who was shot and killed as she breached a window to get into the U.S. House Speaker's lobby during the insurrection, getting a settlement on behalf of the estate of Ashley Babbitt, likely of about $5 million. There was a court hearing on that matter this afternoon. They're moving forward with a settlement for the family of Ashley Babbitt. That type of contrast is being picked up by critics of the administration who say that the president has rewritten the history, or attempted to, of January 6th, and is weaponizing his Department of Justice against a Democratic member of Congress. Trump supporters say it was the Biden administration's Department of Justice that was weaponized against the January 6th defendants. There are political implications to these legal matters.
Scott McFarland. Scott, thank you. Right now, President Trump making that national security announcement in the Oval Office. Let's listen in.
Now, in terms of ground-based missile interceptors, in terms of radar systems and track incoming missiles. So my state is honored to continue to play a critical role in all of this and build on it. And we're really excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan. Great. Any questions?
Yeah, Mr. President, you had mentioned at the beginning of your remarks that this was a campaign promise of yours. Have military commanders asked for this system specifically? Because NORAD had said previously that the current system was adequate. So what does this get the United States
Somebody
that
said
isn't
the current
already
system is
in
adequate.
before?
There really is no current system. We have certain areas of missiles and certain missile defense, but there's no system. We just have some very capable weapons that hopefully we never have to use, but we have some very capable weapons. Now, this is a different league. There's never been anything like this. This is something that's going to be very protective. I think you can rest assured there'll be nothing like this. Nobody else is capable of building it either.
Was it something that military commanders asked you for? Did they ask you to do this?
Well, let me put it differently. I suggested it, and they all said, "We love the idea, sir." It's the way it's got to be, right? But they want it, and they wanted it badly once it was suggested. I don't know if they ever thought they would be lucky enough to have it, but we were able to get it done, and we have all the funding, so pretty much tucked away. I think most people feel it's very important to have. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. When you first announced this idea, critics said it would be prohibitively expensive, potentially ineffective, and could trigger an arms race in space. What do you say to those critics about that?
Well, they're wrong. It's about as close to perfect as you can have in terms of real production. I told you Canada wants to be a part of it, which be, fairly small expansion, but we'll work with them on pricing. We'll be dealing with them on pricing. They know about it very much. They've asked to be a part of it, actually. They've asked us to be a part of it. I think it's something that is great. If you can afford to do it, we can afford to do it. We took in $5.1 trillion in the last 4 days in the Middle East. And when you think about it, this is a tiny fraction of that. But we make it all here. We're going to make it all here. We have, I will tell you, an adversary told me, a very big adversary, told me the most brilliant people in the world are Silicon Valley. He said, we cannot duplicate him. We can't. This was somebody that I won't tell you who it is, but you'd be amazed. We have the most brilliant minds in the world doing this kind of thing, the equipment, the space, the computers, everything. But I said that we just can't duplicate what you have there in Silicon Valley. We never have been able to. And this is a very strong group of people and very strong minds, but they can't. So we have things that nobody else can have. You see what we've done helping Israel with that. You probably wouldn't have in Israel. They launched probably 500 missiles altogether, and I think 1/2 of a missile got through, and that was only falling to the ground as scrap metal. It's pretty amazing, and this is in terms of technology far advanced from that system.
And just one follow-up on the adversaries. Have you addressed Russia's ventures in space with a space-based nuclear weapon and told Putin to stop in your conversations with him?
We haven't discussed it, but at the right time we will. Yeah.
Mr. President, with the goal of keeping Americans safe with this, can you talk about the timeline? How long will this take to complete?
We think it's going to be about a little bit less than 3 years, and we'll have a big phase-in very early. You know, we're starting immediately with $25 billion. It'll cost about $175 billion completed, but we think in 2.5 to 3 years. Yeah.
Are you confident that you can get the funding needed from Congress quickly?
It's amazing how easy this one is to fund. You know, some funding is tough and some is easy. When we say we're going to save everyone's lives in a crazy world, it seems to be very easy to get. Yeah, we've already spoken to everybody we have to speak to. Everybody's in. I would say, Dan, everybody's in line here. Right?
Yes, sir. $25 billion is a down payment in the budget reconciliation bill right now.
Yeah. So I think
people
actually love it.
Mr. President, on Russia, are you worried about the reports on a military buildup along the borders towards Finland and Norway?
No, I don't worry about that at all. They're going to be very safe. Those are two countries that are going to be very safe.
And the secondly, sir, if I may, Volodymyr Zelensky is saying today that he's hoping for you to impose new sanctions on Russia.
Yeah.
Are you considering that?
Well, that's going to be my determination. That's going to be nobody else's determination. We'll see how Russia behaves. We see what's going to happen. You know, we have a pretty critical time right now. I had a talk yesterday for 2.5 hours with President Putin, as you know. I also spoke to all of the European, or to many of them, leaders, but they were representing the whole. And I think we had very good conversations yesterday. Please.
Thanks, Mr. President. What companies have asked to be involved in building this system, and have you decided on who will be building it?
Yeah, I think I'll let you answer that. You can mention some of yours from Alaska's involved, and Alaska's a big part of it because locationally they're sort of perfect. I think that's your first line of defense in certain instances, and Kevin will tell you that his state's involved. But honestly, Georgia's going to be very big. Florida's going to be very big. They're all going to be very big. Jim, do you want to talk about Indiana?
Yeah, in Fort Wayne, Indiana, where I live, we make all the space satellites at L3 Harris. Across the board, we're the top manufacturing state in the country. By the way, the tariffs have been very good for auto manufacturing in Indiana.
So good.
But this is going to be really good for the defense industry in my state. There's so much money involved here. There are going to be a lot of American companies involved in making the Golden Dome
You
possible.
might also say, you're talking about the tariffs, here's some of the biggest auto plants in the world moving into Indiana, only for one reason, maybe two reasons, November 5th and the tariffs, okay?
Yes, sir.
But the tariffs have driven tremendous business into this country. But you have one of the biggest in the world being built.
The Honda Civics,
right?
The new Honda Civic made in Indiana. GM has added jobs. Eli Lilly moving pharmaceutical manufacturing from China to the United States, $27 billion. You go on and on with good news in Indiana and across the country because of the tariffs.
Our country was cold as ice a year ago, and now we have the hottest country in the world. This is the hottest country in the world, nobody even close. If you look at even this last trip that I made, the respect that is paid to our country. We've went from being laughed at all over the world, and now we're the hottest country in the world by far. Dan, go ahead, please.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. I think when you look at the system that you've laid out, it's an idea in your executive order of a layered defense. So you have initial ground-based missile interceptors, which are made by some of the big defense companies, Lockheed, Martin, Raytheon. But the beauty of your vision, Mr. President, is that it's layered, it's open architecture, and it goes up into space. So this is going to be some of the new defense tech companies that are very interested in it and can bring missile defense at a cost that I don't think, you said it, Mr. President, is unimaginable in terms of how much lower the cost is. So it's all across the board in terms of companies. Senator Kramer and I just met with a bunch of them last week that are interested in this. And you said it earlier, Mr. President, our technology sector is head and shoulders above any other place in the world, and they're going to be a key part of this, and I think that's why it makes it so exciting.
Mr. President, I think one of the things that's, and you alluded to this, the new autonomous space age defense ecosystem is more about Silicon Valley than it is about big metal, right? And so what's exciting about this is it makes it available to everybody to participate, to compete. Big companies, mid-sized companies, small companies, but General Gutwein is the perfect person, again, to sort all that out because he understands how it has to work together ultimately.
And Pete, maybe we'll close with you. We have been discussing this for a long time. Pete and I used to discuss it when I was going to go on a show that he did very well and had tremendous ratings, but all he wanted to talk about was the military. He didn't want to talk about anything else. We used to talk about this. How about you closing it out?
Yes, sir. I mean, like I said, without your vision, willing to say and do things when other people wanted to look away and pretend like the threat didn't exist, or be focused on foreign adventurism, some other threat that we've been told is affecting us. When you looked at the data, sir, from Russia to the Communist Chinese and their capabilities, what they're trying to do to supersede us and threaten us, how do we find the best innovators, the best military leaders, the best companies, tech companies? You mentioned open architecture. That's exactly right. So multiple companies can pour into this, sir. It's a layered defense. So if you miss at one, you catch at the next. And it integrates existing technologies that can speak to each other. So it moves quickly while also investing in further ranging space-based interceptors. So our enemies, our adversaries are going to pay a lot of attention to this, just like they have to President Trump from day one. Sir, you're defending the homeland, defending the American people. It's going to benefit my kids, grandkids, all of ours in this room. So thank you for your leadership. We're going to charge ahead as fast as we can.
Very good. Great job, everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Will Elon Musk and Starlink be involved in this? Will Elon Musk be a part of this, Mr. President? Thank you, press.
No cuts. No cuts to Medicare.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, guys.
No cuts to Medicare.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, press.
Thank you very much.
Keep going. Thank you, everybody.
And you are just watching live coverage happening now inside the Oval Office. President Trump and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth announcing the Golden Dome Missile Defense Plan, also answering questions right there in the Oval Office. The president outlining the defense plan that could cost tens of billions of dollars. It is a proposed multi-layered missile defense system for the United States. We'll continue to cover this and have his comments and reaction on 24/7. In the meantime, a dangerous storm system tears through parts of the U.S. Why one city says its warning system failed because of human error. That's next. You're watching CBS News 24/7. Boy, another round of severe weather just slamming the middle of the country, including in Oklahoma, where powerful winds and a tornado tore through. It was just one of many twisters causing havoc for millions. The region also getting hit by lightning. Take a look. That's the moment lightning struck a patrol car in Newcastle. Police say no one was hurt, but urged people to stay inside until the storm passes. CBS News national weather correspondent Rob Marciano is on the ground in Pittsburgh County, Oklahoma.
Aerial footage from Pittsburgh County, Oklahoma shows homes turned inside out and large vehicles upended amid a sea of debris. A dangerous storm system tearing through the region and prompting warnings across the state Monday.
May is sort of that climatological peak where we see the most active southern plains season for tornadoes.
Sean Wagg is a research scientist with NOAA's National Severe Storms Laboratory. His job?
What does this look like while it's falling?
Using this heavy-duty, instrument-laden truck to track the massive hail that some of these storms spit out, which can cause serious damage.
2 weeks ago, this truck was spotless, essentially. So all of these dents have occurred very recently.
It's been a tumultuous few days of tornadic activity. Over the weekend, severe weather claimed nearly 30 lives across several states. And on Monday, the mayor of hard-hit St. Louis admitted that the city's tornado warning system was not used during the storm because of human error.
A button wasn't pushed and the sirens were not deployed.
5 people in the area were killed and dozens injured.
There was a failure, a human failure, a failure in protocol to get the sirens up and running, to let the community know that there was a massive weather event.
Rob Marciano, CBS News.
Let's get to meteorologist Zoe Mintz. You warned us that it was coming, and then do they get a break, or is there more on the way?
There's more on the way, but only one more day of it, luckily, but it's still an active one. Right now, there's actually 4 tornado warnings that are currently ongoing across parts of the deep south and Midwest. We saw some very large hail from the storm systems yesterday, 4-inch in diameter hail from Kansas down to Oklahoma. And if you put 4 inches in diameter into perspective, that's about a grapefruit size. Imagine a grapefruit falling from the sky. Not only is it going to do damage to your car, but it also did a lot of damage to roofs and structural damage. Down in Texas, they saw nearly 3-inch in diameter hail. And again, there's likely going to be more of that today. Right now, again, we're tracking that severe weather currently, and there is tornadoes that are ongoing. That level 4 out of 5 risk. Let's break down the details on what exactly is going on right now and where it's heading. Because again, like I said, multiple tornado warnings currently going on. It was 4. Now we're down to 3 tornado warnings. 2 of those are in the middle of Tennessee right now. There's a very strong line of thunderstorms that's basically making its way over Memphis right now and over the Mississippi Valley. And it's going to continue to head over the Ohio Valley over the next few hours. There's also a line of severe thunderstorms in central Illinois. There is tornadic activity, and this tornadic activity, again, is going to continue to head northeast over the next several hours. There is that risk for tornadoes, for large hail. And you notice, even in Illinois, it's that lower risk, but there's still that tornadic activity that's still ongoing. So even if you're not in this darkest area, you still have the potential for severe weather if you're anywhere in these colored boxes. We also have this hatched area where we are going to be seeing the potential for large EF2 or higher tornadoes and long track as well. So we're going to continue to keep a close eye on this line of storms as it makes its way over the Ohio Valley and central United States over the next few hours. Large hail is going to be a huge issue as well. More grapefruit size hail is possible as we step out. Again, that line of thunderstorms is currently making its way over Memphis, and it's going to make its way across the deep south and the Appalachian Mountains through the late night hours. Luckily, though, the storm system finally going to be dissipating overnight tonight, quieting down with just a little bit of rain making its way across the northeast. So quieter weather. We should be able to pick up the pieces by tomorrow. But those of you who do live in those areas tonight, please hunker down and stay safe. Back to you.
All right, Zoe, thank you so much. On to Mississippi, families who saw their homes ripped to shreds by tornadoes more than 2 months ago are still waiting for federal disaster assistance. 18 tornadoes tore through the state in March, killing 7 people and damaging hundreds of homes. With no financial assistance from FEMA, people in the hard-hit community of Tylertown work to figure out what is next.
I don't know. I don't know what you got to do or what you got to have to be able to be declared for a federal disaster area, because this is pretty bad. We can't help you because whatever, we're waiting on a letter. We're waiting on somebody to sign his name. You know, all that. I'm just over it.
A major disaster declaration would allow the state to access a variety of resources ranging from debris removal to financial aid and infrastructure repairs. CBS News has learned FEMA has lost about a third of its staff, with 1,800 taking President Trump's buyout offer, according to a top former official there. Another 200 or so probationary workers were fired. CBS News Homeland Security and Justice correspondent Nicole Skanga has a look at the impact in our TikTok tube.
This is expected to be a very active hurricane season. In fact, the University of Colorado estimates 2025 will see 17 named storms and 85 named storm days. That's 15 over the national average. It's also a warning shot to FEMA, the nation's disaster relief agency. Now, FEMA still has foot soldiers on the ground in North Carolina. 8 months after Hurricane Helene, just 2 weeks ahead of this year's hurricane season, an internal review authored by the agency's top planners warned the intent for this hurricane season is not well understood. FEMA is not ready. Roughly 20% of FEMA's full-time employees have left or been fired since President Trump took office. It's about 2,000 people. And top officials also warned they're not equipped to handle multiple catastrophic storms at once. 2 current top FEMA officials and 1 top DHS official told CBS News FEMA's no longer planning on sending disaster survival assistance teams into neighborhoods to knock on doors after a major disaster. Without that outreach, there's concern about the disabled, the elderly, those Americans who live in more remote parts of the country who are unable to access that assistance. For months, President Trump has floated getting rid of FEMA. It's something we've also heard FEMA's new acting administrator, David Richardson, echo. And less than 2 weeks ago, his first day on the job, the former Marine Corps officer who has no emergency management experience warned employees not to get in his way. In a statement to CBS News, a DHS spokesperson called FEMA's review of hurricane season another example of a long line of internal leaks intended to manufacture drama, saying they're fully activated for hurricane season. But several FEMA officials and former FEMA officials who spoke with CBS News say they believe the agency is being set up to fail this hurricane season, so it will be easier for the president and the Trump administration to make the political argument to eliminate it.
Our social team has so much more content like this on our TikTok and Instagram pages. You can follow us at the handle CBS News. On to Wall Street now. The closing bell rang just 30 minutes ago. The Dow down more than 100 points. The S&P 500 ended its 6th-day winning streak. We take a look at our interactive stock market heat map brought to you by FinViz. It shows the top 500 stocks leading the losses right now, big tech. So as you can see, we're talking about Amazon, Nvidia, Apple, and Google all landing in the red. So CBS News business contributor Javier David joins us now with more on what's going on with big tech. Hi, Javier.
Hi.
So let's talk about big tech. We saw kind of a dip today in some of our top 5. Let's discuss that.
Yeah, look, there's a heavyweight battle kind of going on right now, and it's between equities and yields. Tech stocks are the most risk-sensitive part of the market. So whenever you see those big names like Apple, Google, Microsoft, Nvidia, et cetera, fall, it's a good sign that appetite for big bets is kind of souring and relief is giving way to jitters. And that's what we're seeing here. Markets are really struggling to reconcile this eternal tension that exists, the irrational exuberance of stock markets and stock investors on one hand, and the skepticism and anxiety that tends to drive the bond vigilantes on the other. And the bond side of the market is very concerned about what just happened with the Moody's downgrade and what it represents for the future.
Let's talk about Home Depot. It talked about the path forward under President Trump's tariffs. It's a very different message from the one that we heard from Walmart. So tell us more about that.
Yeah, so Home Depot is a different kind of business. They're a multi-billion-dollar player in their sector like Walmart, but unlike Walmart, the model's different. They don't sell food and retail, so some of their things are not as susceptible to the worst vagaries of tariff policy. However, people kind of glossed over the second part of what they said, and it's really interesting. They virtually admitted that higher costs might cause them to simply not stock certain items if they got too pricey. So they could easily say, and I think this was an exact quote, that there are items we could potentially be impacted from tariff that candidly we won't have going forward. So they'll just take it off the market. And so there's a third thing here that's in play, that like the White House's bully pulpit, it's a powerful force. And so it should be used judiciously. It could very well be the case that Home Depot decided to kind of preemptively shut down any sort of discussion about price hikes because they know that it would anger the White House and certain elements of their customer base would stop shopping with them. So it really is kind of a public pressure campaign. And part of that is because they don't want to incur the ire of the president nor his supporters.
All right, good information. Javier, thank you so much, as always. Next, a former male escort takes the stand in the federal sex trafficking trial of Sean Diddy Combs. His testimony on his interactions with the hip-hop mogul and his ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura. You're watching CBS News 24/7. Diddy Combs' trial continued today in a New York courtroom. He's charged with racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking, transportation for purposes of prostitution, fraud, and coercion. CBS News legal reporter Katrina Kaufman is live in New York with more on this. Katrina, what were your key takeaways from the courtroom today?
Key takeaways were that so much conduct happened at the direction of Sean Combs. We heard from multiple witnesses today. One was an escort who was named the Punisher that had engaged in what he said were sort of sexy scenes with Cassie Ventura, Sean Combs' ex-girlfriend, and Combs. He talked about how she would look to Combs for direction during those incidents. We also heard really vivid testimony from a former personal assistant of Combs, that's David James, who told us how he had to take care of every tiny detail of Sean Combs' life, down to what had to be in a hotel room, for example, when Sean Combs went to stay there. A favorite of his was actually the Trump International Hotel at Columbus Circle, which feels ironic because I haven't seen a criminal trial of this scale since Trump's criminal trial. But just to share, some of the items that he was told to leave in these hotel rooms were everything from a Jordan's sweatshirt, slides, underwear, to certain foods like applesauce, Jell-O, and Fiji water, 40 cosmetic skin products for Sean Combs' skin, 25 to 30 pill bottles. These included Advil, water pills for Sean Combs' weight, Percocets, ecstasy. His assistant also testified that one of the ecstasy pills that Sean Combs liked to take was in the shape of Obama's face. And he said that Combs was on drugs every day, Percocets by day, and then often ecstasy by night. But for him, a final straw was an incident that involved Suge Knight, a competitor of Sean Combs, where they ended up in a car with 3 guns driving to potentially confront him. And that's when James said that he realized that it was dangerous for him to be around Combs. Even though he testified that working for Bad Boy Entertainment was like a family, Combs' mother even called him son at points. In addition, we heard testimony from Cassie Ventura's mother. That's Regina Ventura. And it's significant because she talked about an incident in December of 2011 where Ventura, her daughter, sent her an email saying that Sean Combs was threatening to release 2 explicit sex tapes and threatening potential violence against her and Scott Mescudi, who's also known as Kid Cudi. He said that that would happen when he was out of the country so his hands wouldn't be on it, and asked Ventura's mother for $20,000 to compensate him for money that he had spent on Cassie. She ended up paying him that money because she said that she feared for her daughter's life. We are supposed to hear from Kid Cudi on the stand this week to hear his side of the story of these events.
All right, Katrina, thank you so much. A new book written by 2 journalists alleges steps were taken to conceal former President Biden's declining health while he was in office. Original Sin, President Biden's Decline, its cover-up, and his disastrous choice to run again is out today. Authors Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson say they spoke to more than 200 people, many within the Biden administration, about Biden's health. Sources describe Biden's struggle to remember the names of longtime associates going back to 2014. Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson gave their first TV interview on the book.
There were 2 moments of where people really noticed decline. The first was in 2015 when his son Beau Biden died. Advisors from the time just noted, it was like his brain was like pouring water into sand. It just disintegrated. People that visited him in 2017, 2018 felt like he'd aged 10 years in just 2. And on the campaign trail, aides could see it. Now, they would say that, good Biden or functioning Biden was much more, was much more around than non-functioning Biden. But, there were moments that gave aides pause.
And then as years went on, the non-functioning Biden would rear his head increasingly to the point that in 2023, after another drama with his family, his son Hunter, the plea deal falling apart, and the very real fear that Hunter would go to prison, if not spiral out of control and overdose or whatever, these were things that the family was talking about, that also triggered a real diminishment.
So this all comes as Biden was just diagnosed with an aggressive form of prostate cancer. CBS News White House reporter Aaron Navarro is in Wilmington, Delaware, with reaction to the book.
Jules, good afternoon. I'm about a mile away from the former president's house here in Wilmington, where CBS News has learned is where he is staying as he and his family consider treatments on his newly diagnosed prostate cancer. But we did hear from the Biden camp earlier today in response to the book, where they say, quote, there is nothing in the book that, quote, shows Joe Biden failed to do his job, as the authors have alleged, nor did they prove their allegation that there was a cover-up or conspiracy. The spokesperson for the former President Biden goes on to add that there were no specific examples where national security was threatened or where the president wasn't engaged in the important matters of the presidency. You also saw the president's granddaughter, Naomi Biden, the daughter of Hunter Biden, really discredit the book, discredit the authors, saying it relies on unnamed anonymous sources, pushing a self-serving false narrative. So that's been the main response from the Biden camp so far.
Aaron, thank you. A family is hoping to use its own tragedy to save others from a hidden danger while on vacation. CBS News' Chris Van Cleve has the story.
For John Heathcote and his girlfriend Abby, it was supposed to be a long weekend by the beach in Mexico. But within hours of getting to their hotel room, something was off.
They had a couple tacos and some guacamole by the pool, went back to the room and started feeling awful.
They thought it was food poisoning, but Heathcote's family says the couple's hotel room had filled with a silent killer, carbon monoxide. John's sister, Carrie.
After dinner, they went back to the room and never came back out of the room.
Their 2023 deaths made headlines. John's father, Chuck.
I had to go into the bedroom and let my wife know we lost our son. Tough one.
Now, the Heathcote family is speaking out for the first time as they launch an effort to legally require hotels to have working carbon monoxide detectors in each room. Right now, only 14 states mandate it. John's mother, Jill.
Losing Johnny, I pray that no other family has to go through that loss, but we've got a tremendous hole in our heart.
In February, 3 Massachusetts women in their 20s died in their hotel room while on vacation in Belize. The cause? Carbon monoxide.
Something has to happen to help prevent this from another family suffering the loss we have with Johnny and Abby.
Do you worry you're going to see more of those headlines?
Yes, absolutely.
It's going to happen.
It's inevitable.
The Centers for Disease Control say carbon monoxide poisoning kills about 400 Americans a year. A CBS News data review of FEMA's National Fire Incident Reporting System found over the last 15 years, fire departments nationally responded to about 360 carbon monoxide incidents at hotels and motels annually.
You would think the large hotel chains would actually do this preventively. I mean, these are literally people's lives that are being impacted. People are dying.
Minnesota Congresswoman Angie Craig and Representative Mike Levin from California plan to introduce new legislation to require carbon monoxide detectors in hotels and other short-term rentals.
It's common sense, and it's something that I hope we can get passed and get signed into law and save lives.
For the Heathcote family, a life saved means one less family living with their kind of heartbreak.
Smartest guy. I've ever known.
What do you miss most about your son?
His love and support. He was my best friend, too.
What I think about a lot is I'm a father of an amazing man. And to this day, I still find myself wanting to be more like him.
The American Hotel and Lodging Association tells CBS News carbon monoxide incidents in hotel settings remain rare. It emphasizes the importance of proactive measures and encourages proper installation of carbon monoxide detectors in applicable areas and ongoing staff training. Lawmakers acknowledge this legislation comes with the cost of installing carbon monoxide detectors in each hotel room. We bought this portable one for less than $25, so that's also an option for you. As part of their effort, the Heathcotes are launching a foundation in John's name to raise awareness about carbon monoxide poisoning. Chris Van Cleve, CBS News, New York.
In Southern California, explosive material has been found inside the home of the suspect allegedly behind the explosion at a fertility clinic. CBS News Los Angeles reporter Joy Benedict spoke to a deputy fire chief who ran into the clinic just minutes after the blast.
right here. This whole building exploded.
The blast was felt for blocks as debris from a car bomb outside a fertility clinic in Palm Springs leveled this building.
It was insane. I thought it was a massive earthquake.
But for a time, it also crippled the hope of couples throughout this community.
My first reaction was like, my embryos are there. Like what's going to happen to my embryos?
Thankfully, it was a thought that also went through the mind of Deputy Fire Chief Greg Lyle, who was on the scene.
I tried to pitch it that, there were hopes and dreams in there, and the fire department volunteered to go try and help.
Within minutes of the blast, he and a member of the bomb squad entered the building looking for cryogenic material, frozen embryos, eggs, anything that could help local families conceive.
We said, if we don't try, the bad guy wins. I didn't know what I was looking for, neither did he. We didn't know what a cryogenic tank looked like or what it was, what we were going to find.
They realized upon entering the blast site that the freezers were too big to move, so they found a way to restore the power, keeping those dreams alive.
Received a text message later on that night from one of the personnel of the fire department thanking me for saving his embryos.
Investigators say the suspect in the blast, Guy Edward Bartkus, was killed in the explosion and that he had expressed an anti-pro-life stance. His father told us he used to make stink and smoke bombs as a child and even burned the house down once, but he says he never expected him to hurt anyone.
I was never like that before that. Guy was more for helping people.
Investigators spent Monday on the scene, still sorting through the debris, trying to figure out exactly what exploded.
Trying to see if they can identify anything that can show how or what kind of device was used.
Because hearing the FBI say that this is the largest bomb they've seen detonate in Southern California, that's alarming.
So I've been here for almost 24 years. That has never happened in our city's history. This was felt about a mile away. We're still getting people calling in with fragments from the vehicle or debris on their roofs or in their front yards.
The Palm Springs Police Department tells me that although this clinic is clearly closed, the doctor has been able to continue seeing patients at a different location, so no one's treatment was disrupted by this blast. Joy Benedict, CBS News, Palm Springs, California.
America Decides with Major Garrett is next with more on President Trump's push to rally Republicans around what he calls his one big beautiful bill. You're watching CBS News 24/7.